What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Happy Monday. Hope you guys are doing well. And it is officially the week of. It is officially the week of the 2025 NFL Draft. Some people think the week starts on Sunday. Some people think the week starts on Monday. But regardless of your belief system there, it is now the week of. We are just a few days away from the start of the 2025 NFL Draft. And even though we've spent way too much time on this channel discussing the draft already, there's still some stuff we haven't touched on yet that I want to go ahead and make sure I address in a more formal and official fashion before we actually get to the draft. I'm talking about trading. So we're going to be talking about trading picks and what a pick trade for the Seahawks might look like, one way or the other. This video is powered by BetUS TV. So before I get into this stuff, this trade stuff, I want to let everybody know that I'm going to be streaming with the Hawks Nest in a few hours here. Stream about 3 hours from the upload of this video. Me and him are going to be streaming together. We're going to do a mock draft contest of sorts. The stream link is already live. It's been live since Saturday, I think. So just go there around noon. We're going to go live. And the idea is we're both going to do mock draft simulations, and then we're going to have people vote on who did the better mock draft. So come to one of our streams, come to one of our channels, and we'll talk about what needs to be talked about, and we'll do this mock draft contest, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. So noon today. If you can't catch it live, then catch the video on demand. And yeah, that's what's going on today. But we got to talk about trading draft picks now, because that is something that teams do. That is something that can happen. And it's something that needs to be explored and understood a little bit. So the most important part of trading draft picks is understanding what the value of a draft pick is. And it's always going to be subjective. And it's always going to be dependent on things that we as fans don't really have a great understanding of, right? We don't know how much a team covets a particular pick at a particular time. Sometimes the team themselves may not know until the moment comes when they can actually acquire the pick. So there's no accounting for taste, right? There's no accounting for what the team is valuing at that moment. They may value it more than another team in a different position, and it may be done in a way that can't really be predicted. But generally speaking, there are two ways that draft picks are evaluated objectively. There's the Jimmy Johnson model, and then you have the Rich Hill model. The Jimmy Johnson trade was something that was developed in the 90s from the great head coach Jimmy Johnson of the Dallas Cowboys. Basically, it assigns a point value to every draft pick in a draft. And from those point values, you can construct trades that are theoretically equal in a vacuum. Again, it doesn't account for particular taste or particular need. It doesn't account for what that team might be thinking at that particular moment. It doesn't account for what players are left. It doesn't account for the specific draft class. But it provided a pretty good starting point. Now, the Jimmy Johnson chart is considered by some to be outdated. So we have the Rich Hill model, which does the same thing, but it uses completely different point values. So a lot of people say the Rich Hill model is better. There are other models as well, but these are the two most popular ones. And there are some people that say no model is going to be able to capture this. Before I go any further, I do want to talk about my friends over at BetUS TV. We got a lot of sports cooking right now. The basketball playoffs started over the weekend. We've got hockey playoffs starting in the last couple of days here. You've got baseball underway. We're a few weeks into the baseball season. Football draft stuff coming up later this week. You've got all kinds of stuff going on in the world of sports. Just because football is in the off season doesn't mean things are happening. And you can make your sports viewing experience all the more fun over on BetUS TV. Go check them out. Go give them a shot. BetUS TV. Go have fun. Enhance your sports viewing experience and go have a blast. Okay, so whatever model you ascribe to, the Rich Hill model or the Jimmy Johnson model, you get a baseline for what is valued where. and it's at least a starting point. Now, I think that you need to be a little bit flexible beyond that starting point, but I do think that it gives you a decent place to start. So let's take a look at some potential trades for the Seahawks that I have concocted using these charts. And basically, we're going to divide it up into 3 different sections. We're going to start with trading up. And I'm talking about trading up in the first round. I think that once you get into day 2 and day 3, trading up and trading down is kind of a crapshoot. And it's really, really hard to actually accurately determine when a team might be tempted to go up or go down. If that's desirable, that's something you kind of figure out on the fly. But the first round, let's talk about trading up for a bit here. And I'll just go ahead and say it. This is probably not the John Schneider way. I believe John Schneider has a pretty firm philosophy that you do not want to trade up in the first round. I think that is against his belief system, and I think that is something that he tries to avoid, and it might be something that he doesn't even think about doing. But I do want to explore this because at the same time, he could be looking at things differently now that Pete Carroll's not there. What if it was Pete Carroll who refused to ever trade up in the first round and he had the final say on that kind of stuff? Maybe John Schneider would be willing to deviate from that plan for the right player. Now, personally, for me, I think there are 2 scenarios where the Seahawks should trade up in this draft. The first scenario would be we get to about pick 8, 9, or 10. Maybe, let's say 9 to 10, and Armand Membo is still there. If we get to pick 9 or 10 and Membo is still on the board, I want to trade up to get him because I don't want the Niners to get him, and I think that's great value to get a guy like Membo at 9 or 10. So let's start there. What would it take to get the pick at 9? Let's start with that number 9 overall pick, the pick that the Saints currently hold. So using the classic Jimmy Johnson chart, our number 18 pick is worth 900 points. Their 9th overall pick is worth 1,350 points. So we have to make up 450 points of value. In order to do that, I went with our 2nd round pick, which is 400 points, but we're still not there. I had to throw in a late 4th round pick, 137, which is worth 37.5 points. And then I also threw in a late 5th round pick, which is worth 21.4 points. So it's almost balanced at this point. You can see 1350 on one side, 1358.9 on the other side, so almost equal. It is a slight win for the Saints, but that is probably something you would have to do to move up. Usually the team that moves down gets more quote-unquote value. So this is one scenario, but that's the classic model. If you want to use the Rich Hill model, the Rich Hill model tells you that 18 is worth 287 and that the number 9 is worth 387. So in order to offset that 100-point differential, you would go your 52nd overall pick, so that's a middle 2nd round pick, 109 points, and then let's say the Saints throw in their 6th round pick, 184 overall, worth 7 points. That gets you to an almost equal trade on the Rich Hill model. 396 on the Seattle side, 394 on the Saints side. So according to the charts, that's what it would cost to move up from 18 to 9. So obviously the Rich Hill model is better for us here. You're giving up a 2nd round pick to do it, and you're also getting a little bit back with that extra 6th round pick as well. So the other team that you could trade up with in this range, I think, would be the Bears. So what is the difference between the number 9 pick and the number 10 pick? If you bump down, you're asking from the number 9 to the number 10, you can see that it becomes much easier to construct a trade. Now, instead of giving up in the classic chart, the 18, 50, 137, and 175, what you're giving up is just 18 and 50, which exactly equals the value of the number 10 overall pick of 1,300. Now, maybe you have to throw in a little extra something to get them to bite. Maybe you throw in like a 5th round pick or something. Maybe you throw in, I don't know, if they want Sam Howell, they could have Sam Howell. But you can see how equal the trade is already. So just by moving down one spot in your asking price, you save your 4th and your 5th rounder. Now, if you want to do the Rich Hill model, you can actually save your second round picks entirely, and you can go, you get the Bears number 10 pick worth $369. You give up your 18th overall pick, of course, and then you also give up your third round pick, your earliest, your better third round pick, 54 points, and then 137, a fourth round pick, 16 points, 172, a fifth round pick worth 9 points. Now, it's always a little bit tricky when you're talking about throwing a bunch of low-level draft picks into a trade. That could definitely cause a team to lose interest because in their minds, they're getting lottery tickets and they may not place a lot of value on that. But you can see that the value is at least very close, right? You are getting to the point now where it's like, okay, what you give up is slightly less than what you are getting, but it's basically equivalent. And again, you could throw in Sam Howell. You could throw in a future fifth round pick. You could throw in a, I don't know, sixth round pick this year, whatever it takes to make them happy at that point, if there is a way to make them happy. And you can see that now you're saving your second round pick. You're not even having to utilize it, unlike the Saints pick, Saints trade, where you definitely had to utilize that pick no matter what. Okay, so that's the first scenario where I want to trade up. I want to explore trading up with the Saints or the Bears if Membo is still on the board when those teams are on the board. The second scenario where I would look to trade up would be if Will Johnson is still on the board around pick 12 to 13, maybe pick 14. That's when I would start thinking about trading up to the early teens so I could get Will Johnson. To me, that's the other guy with a lot of value who I covet heavily, who I think has a real chance of sliding. I don't think he's going to slide to 18, just like I don't think Membo is going to slide to 18. But I could see him sliding realistically to 12 or 13. So let's take a look at a trade with the Dolphins. Let's say you want to trade with the Miami Dolphins. You've got pick 18, obviously. The Dolphins have pick 13. So you need to make up on the classic chart, you need to make up 250 points, right? You need to make up 250 points. Well, the only way I can do that would be if I give up my second round pick, which is worth 380 points. That's too much. So what we're then going to do is have the Dolphins also send back their third round pick, 108. And then I'm also having them chip in a seventh round pick, which is, this is a seventh round pick worth 1.6 points. And that gets us close. As you can see, it doesn't come together completely smoothly, but I got it to within 20 points. I got it to within 20.4 points. We are giving up a little bit more than we get back, but it's close enough to where I think it's fine. And this is something you might have to do to get the Dolphins to bite anyway. Sometimes you have to give up a little bit more than you send when you move up. So that's fine. But we give up our first and our second. They give back their first, they give back a third, and then they give back a seventh. And I don't know, maybe instead of the seventh, maybe you kick back the seventh, turn the third into a fourth, and then you can get Jalen Ramsey in the trade. There are a couple other ways to make this math, but I think that there is something going on here that is feasible. And if you want to use the Rich Hill chart, it's actually really, really simple. You have Seattle's 18 pick at 287. You have Miami's 13th overall pick at 336. So that's a discrepancy of almost 50 points. So in order to make up that 50-point discrepancy, Seattle sends the 82nd overall pick, so their third round pick, back to Miami. So 341 on Seattle's side, 336 on Miami's side. That's a 5-point discrepancy. So very, very close, very, very equivalent. And I think Miami would probably be willing to do that. They are technically winning the trade by a little bit. And picking up a third round pick to move back 5 spots is something they may be open to. So that is how I look at the possible trade ups the Seahawks could make. I only want to do it situationally, but there's definitely a scenario where I want to do it. I would definitely want to make sure I snipe Membo from the Niners. Remember, the Niners pick at 11. If Membo gets to the Niners, that is something that I'm going to really be kicking myself over not stopping, because not only are you missing out on a great player, but the Niners are getting him too. And I'm willing to trade up a little bit for Will Johnson because I believe he's going to be a great corner. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. More trading stuff later today. Thank you to BetUS TV for powering this video.